I would say I think the most important person in your team is probably your. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I am your host, Jacob Payne.
Yeah.
We know this isn't me, or is it Sean?
It is not Sean. Come on now. And I'm your other co-host, Jake Shee. We're here. Sean is in Hawaii. I'll be gone. So we're doing another episode. We're going back to back. We're talking a lot today, and it feels good. But today we're going to talk about some really good stuff we got on the agenda today. The dream team. Who and why? Who do you need on your team to be successful in the short-term rental business, and why do you need them on your team? How much do you really need to acquire a property and to make it close and to be profitable? What does it really take? And then we're going to kind of dive into some other fun topics that'll be a surprise for later in the episode. But first and foremost, if you're new here, make sure to like and share this. Subscribe. Make sure you're here every Wednesday and Friday for amazing content that's going to keep coming out. No hesitations. All right. Starting off. Let's get into it. Dream team. When someone's looking at getting into this, they may be thinking they need a lot of they need real estate help, they need photographers, they need designers. Who and why?
Yeah, well, all those things you mentioned are part of that dream team.
Right.
But let's break it down in kind of two different aspects. So
okay.
I would say if you're going to be self-managing, your dream team is even more important if you have, a property manager in place. And so if you're self-managing, actually, let's take it a step back.
Okay.
Before you even buy the property, having a great real estate agent that understands the markets, understands the regulations, that is key to, buying that property.
Question.
Yeah.
You need a real estate agent that's in that market.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, the more local, the better. They have local insights, right? I mean, we were talking last episode of things about Blue Ridge that I didn't even know about because I've never really been there or experienced the area.
Right.
But you knew that. So having a local realtor in place is just going to give you more insights into that market. But I will say, as trusted as our partners are, and us at Vodyssey, we have a really great real estate network across the country. And so if you ever need a real estate connection, email support@vodyssey.com.
Good plug.
We most likely have a connection in the market you're after, or can source one very quickly for you.
Yeah.
And so that's something we've built out. And as trusted as those partners are, we still tell all of our Vodyssey members and investors to go out and do your own due diligence as far as regulation goes.
Right.
I have seen it in the past where agents have said, hey, this is a property you can rent out on Airbnb and VRBO and have it as a short-term rental. And they get operating for a month or two and they get some caution red tape. Hey, you can't operate here. And so going out, understanding the local laws and regulations, all the way down to the HOA level is very important. So again, as trusted as our partners are, we want to make sure to do that, due diligence on the front end ourselves. And so outside of that, you want to have a great lender in place, somebody that's easy to work with. And so, making sure all your financing is squared away. Getting more into the actual property itself. If you are going to have, someone else manage the property, having a really great property manager in place is key. They also are going to have their own probably connections as far as cleaners and handymen and those sorts of things. But again, if you are self-managing and going down that road, your dream team is really your boots on the ground, especially if you're far away. And so having a really good connection with your cleaners, your maintenance guys, all those things. We have some really great self-managers in the group. Shout out Josh Leahy. Shout out Steve Cummings. They came in, a couple weeks ago for an awesome boardroom
they
HQ.
Did. Yep.
Man, they both do such a great job. Josh in particular does so many things on the back end, and something that really stuck out to me from when he was here is he was saying, go out and be proactive, not reactive, right? So he goes out and schedules his HVAC checks like twice a year and has them on the books and does all these things like, hey, if anything goes wrong, it could have been prevented. And so Josh is awesome self-managing. But having that dream team in place really is crucial to operating a successful and seamless property.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I was thinking when you're listing off the people, I'm immediately thinking of importance level, right? I'm going so the lender is super important. Is he the first person I need to find? No, the real estate. And then I'm like, well, honestly, maybe they're all equal level of high importance. If one fails, if the real estate agent says, no, you don't have any regulations, but then you find out you have regulations, you're SOL, right? You're that's over. But if you find someone that's a bad property manager, man, you're going to start tanking in reviews. You're going to start taking in price. So all of them, am I wrong in saying this, are same level of importance. You need heavy hitters. You need the dream team.
Yeah, for sure. I think there might be some that are more important than others, depending on what part of the process you're in, right? Like,
okay.
Your realtor is not very important once you're operating because, I
Right.
mean, they might be a great plug for you to, like, promote your property, but
Mm-hmm.
it's their job is over with, right? They help you find the property, negotiate the terms, put the offer in.
Right.
I would say I think the most important person in your team is probably your cleaners.
Wow.
That's just because they are the ones that are, they have eyes on the property.
Yeah.
They're seeing it the most. They're noticing when things go missing.
Right.
If you have a good relationship with your cleaners and
Yeah.
you can have a candid conversation about what's going on,
Yeah.
they can give you updates.
Yeah.
If a party comes in and they trash your place, they're the first point of contact with what's going on. And so if you're going to put any emphasis on a certain role, I think that's a really big one just because they are there so much.
Wow.
What would you think the most important person is, or do you think everyone's kind of like equal?
Okay, that's a really great question. I think the most important person, if you're not going to self-manage,
Mm-hmm.
would have to be the property manager.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
I would say that because after listening to Steve and Josh talk,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of detail that goes into
Right.
leaving an amazing experience, the communication, and we were talking about this on one of the past couple episodes. We were talking, and I think it was Josh who was saying he decides the time of when he sends the message.
Yeah.
Based off when they leave the property, which for me, I would just automate that crap, right? And just send it whenever they check out, just send them a message.
Right.
But he's like, no, you want to have the best experience. And I'm like, man, someone that's really going to take the time and care about each one of your guests, that seems like that's going to be your main thing right there.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think when you are self-managing, you can put so much more detail into those things.
Right.
As great as some of our property managers are, nobody's going to care about your property as much as you do.
Right.
And about the experience as your guest. And so I think there's pros and cons to doing both, getting a property manager or self-managing.
Right.
But I do think the actual guest experience can be much better.
Can be elevated.
It's a better word. Can be elevated with a self-manager.
Yeah,
for sure.
I totally agree.
So
okay, that's really interesting. Okay, so who else is is there anyone else on the dream team? Like, you really caught me off guard. You really did with the cleaners. Yeah. I was not thinking that. Is there another one that kind of comes to your mind? Like a maintenance person?
Yeah, maintenance is big. If something goes wrong, having a couple. I mean, you heard Steve's story too, right? When he was over, I think it was Memorial Day weekend.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The AC went out, and he had to call 6-7 companies before he got someone out there to get it fixed. And so having a reliable maintenance person around is big. We had a really great one in North Carolina for our property. He was local to the area, and so I think every 2 months or so he'd drive by and just kind of do a check on stuff, and we would give him some discounts on taking the property. Like during our actual setup phase, we had a ton of stuff to fix. He came in, did an awesome job. We actually gave him a free weekend there, and so building that relationship with your people too can be great. So
okay, that's interesting. So you need a maintenance guy, and you need cleaners that are there, and you need a real estate agent that's in your area that knows the area. What about lenders? What about the property managers? Do they need to be in the area, or can they be in a couple different states too?
Yeah, I think it's different depending on what you're looking at. If you're a lender, lenders can oftentimes loan all over the country as long as they're licensed in that area. And so I don't think that's as important to being local. For property managers, I think, like we already talked about, the more local you are, the more insights you have. And so not saying you have to be local to a certain area, but I think the more closer proximity, the better you understand the area, the market, the profit drivers, can answer questions about that. So I think each one kind of has its own level of importance as far as proximity goes.
Right. Love it.
Or in relation to proximity.
Yeah. Okay. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit here. Let's kind of move on. Right. So we talked about having the proximity, right?
Yeah.
So you need people close to you.
Right.
What about if you're not even close to your property?
Yeah.
What is that like? How much I want to know, how much do you rely on these other people? How do you handle the emotional stress of it all? Because no one's going to care about your property as much as you do, and you're now relieving. Here's my responsibility to my cleaners, to my maintenance, to my property managers. When something doesn't go right, how do you handle the emotional toll of that?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, good question. I think your first part was how is it operating that way? It's challenging. Don't want to scare anyone away from doing this because sometimes the numbers look better in a certain area. Or you want to be. Or
your family vacations, like when my family loved to go to Gulf Shores, Alabama, but we lived in Ringgold, Georgia. That's 8-9 hours away.
Right.
It's a little bit further than across, or a little bit shorter than across states, but you're still some distance there. You're not going to be the first person in contact.
And so I mean that's why having your dream team in place is just so crucial.
Right.
because they are the point of contact, the boots on the ground, actual, physically there. And so I would say, you got to have a lot of trust in them, having them be there. And if anything does go south, you got to feel confident they can fix it.
Right.
And so going through an extensive interview process with that dream team is important too. And so asking the right questions, understanding how they operate, reading their agreements, like all that stuff goes into this dream team aspect. So,
right.
Of building that out.
Is there a way that you like to weed people out?
Yeah, actually, it was through. We have a questionnaire inside of the masterclass that we can ask all these people. So there's questions listed out that you should be asking your realtor, asking your property manager. As far as there's not a questionnaire for like the cleaners or the handyman, but those are kind of just you got to get a good gut feel for.
Maybe like their experience.
Yeah, you talk about their experience, how long they've been operating in that market, some of their SOPs, things like that. And so, but for the more not established, but the more maybe.
The lenders, the real estate agents, the property managers, those kinds of people.
Those are ones you have kind of more detailed. You're trying to get more information from the questionnaire and the questions you ask them to understand how they operate. Okay.
And I think that's something I didn't even really understand is how much power you actually have is, you can kind of, this is an interview process.
Oh, yeah.
In a way. It's not like, hey, I'm just hiring you and now can you take over? It's, no, before I hire you, I want to make sure my property, my asset, my livelihood is going to be good.
Yeah.
So people need to,
It's kind of like being a head coach of a sports team, right?
Yeah.
You got to pull in all the right pieces to go win a championship.
Right.
It's a little different. You're not winning a championship here, but.
No, I like the analogy, though. That makes sense.
You want to perform at a high level.
Right.
You want to make sure your investment is secured and you're safe and you're making money and it's going the way you wanted it to. So if your ultimate goal is to win a championship, you're not going to go bring in, C-level players.
Right.
Or even B-level players. You want the cream of the crop.
Right.
The A-plus players. And so got to have the same mentality.
I love it. And that kind of bleeds into our next thing.
Yeah.
You're spending a lot of money for this.
Right.
This is not some cheap feat. This is a lot of money for a lot of people here.
Yeah.
How much do you even really need?
Yeah, that's a
very open-ended question. So let's kind of go piece by piece here.
Okay.
Walk me through the first step. Maybe the acquisition. Okay. What do you?
Yeah. Well, there's lots of different facets to it, right? So you have so many different expenses that come into play.
Okay.
Obviously, let's hit the big ones.
Okay.
Maybe dive in a little deeper after that. So your biggest one's going to be obviously your down payment. And so depending on what loan you get, there's some options out there for 10% down loans. A bit more common, there's DSCR loans that are 25 to 30% down. More second home investment loans are 20 to 25%. And so anywhere from 10 to, I'll say 30 on the high end for DSCR is the amount you need down. So if you're buying $1 million house, that's $100,000 to $300,000 just in your down payment.
Wow, dude, that's a chunk of change.
Yeah, for sure. And so having that much capital out there, you want to make sure you're doing it right and performing at a high level to exceed your revenue expectations. So outside of that, you obviously have some other expenses mixed in there. Closing costs, oftentimes when you're opting into your loan, you have a home inspection. That's
how much is closing cost?
We budget. I mean, each lender's different. Even sometimes each market can be different. We budget 3%.
3%
of, and that's just when looking at the purchase price. So on $1 million house, that's $30,000.
Okay.
And so, again, that's not like a rule set in stone. That's just kind of a general ballpark number out there.
Okay.
But, oftentimes it can be less than that, and I'd say the majority of times it is. But just to be conservative, we do 3%.
I love it.
Obviously, you have your setup costs, right? And so actually going in and furnishing the property, setting it up for that experience, we have a couple ways of looking at it. One way is 10% of the purchase price. And so let's say you're buying, again, $1 million house, you need $100,000 to go get it furnished.
Okay.
A little bit more of a detailed answer would be looking at the square footage. Anywhere from 30 to $40 a square foot can be a good way to look at it too. And so, again, each property is different. It's not like a rule set in stone, but it's a kind of a sliding scale depending on the property. So outside of that, we also think it's good to have a good 6 months to 9 months of reserves built up of your actual property expenses. Going through and getting launched and established can take some time, and so as you're going through that phase, you don't want to be strapped on cash and you can't make the mortgage payment and then you're gone, right? So having a little bit of reserve built up to get through that establishment and launch phase is also something we recommend. So
golly, I'm thinking this costs a lot of money, but this I'm still just stuck on, I guess, the emotional aspect of it for some reason, dude. the amount of time that it's going to take to find the correct property. You go over the numbers with you, and if you need somebody to go over the numbers with, contact support at Vodyssey.com. Jacob here, the best in the business. He's going to help you out, put you at the top of the cream of the crop, build the ball. You're going to be the best, okay?
A little too much.
So it's an emotional. You got to find the right property.
Yeah.
You're going to maybe you go visit the property beforehand.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to fly out there. You're going to talk about it with your husband or your wife or your partner or whoever. Then you're going to go and you're going to sign it all. They're going to get closing costs, and then you're going to start to furnish it.
Yeah.
And then you got to set it all up, right? And then you got to get photos. And this takes a lot of emotional toll on people. What's the best way, I guess, to budget for the feelings, I guess, is my question. Like, should I go, I know I'm about to drop 30% on the $1 million property, $300,000. Right.
Yeah.
I know it's going to take me another 100,000. Is there a way to kind of prepare for this at all? Because I think that when I ask that, some people are going to go, let's just go for like a $500,000 property instead.
Right.
Let's pull back. Maybe we don't need to furnish all the way.
Right.
Is there a way to kind of mentally prepare? Like, no, dude, or just think about the success later down the road.
I'm going to pull a little insert I heard from my favorite podcast out there outside of this podcast is the PBD podcast. I went back and listened to his episode with Kobe Bryant before he passed away. And so, and he kind of asked a similar question, like, how do you prepare for this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And Kobe's answer was simple. He just said, it's all in the pre-work. It's all in the knowledge beforehand and the due diligence you're doing on the front end. And so, but obviously in that same token, you don't want to put yourself in a financial situation you can't afford to be in, right? So understanding your limits too. And so everything you do there's risk involved with no matter what you do in life.
Right.
And so doing the pre-work, having the knowledge, having the team around you, having the support group around you, that's how I think you'd mitigate the risk of taking a plunge into something this big.
Right.
And also in that same breath too, it's not easy. It's not everyone's out here doing it and operating at a high level.
Right.
And so
if
it was easy, everyone would do it. And that's why a lot of people do buy these properties, but they don't always pan out for them. And so.
Okay, that's a great answer, dude. Having the trust, the faith, the belief, and the coach that you've hired, and the people you have around, and you've put the work in, and you've built up. No one just has $1 million to spend on or this amount of money to spend on $1 million property. You've worked to a level. You've gone into a degree. You've gotten the experience. You've built your own business. You are a high operating person in the first place. Right. So you can accomplish this amount of money. You've been here before.
Right.
It's just deciding where you want to put your money, I guess. Because if you have that amount of money, you're going to spend it in something. You're either going to put it in a high yield savings account, or you're going to put in some stocks, you're going to go into the crypto. Either way, you're going to put your money somewhere.
Right.
But having the faith and the trust in these people and the success later down the road. All right.
Yeah.
I like that answer. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of ties into our next thing here with the sports, with the Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
There's some new stuff going on, man.
Oh yeah.
And that I really don't know about, that you can really share some light on. So talk to me about this. What's happening with the NIL or NHL? What is it?
No, it is NIL.
What's NIL?
NIL stands for name, image, and likeness.
Okay.
And so obviously a lot of these universities make a ton of money from these athletes coming in, performing at a high level, winning championships. And so the players in the past.
Question: You're talking about Roll Tide, Alabama football. So just to help me tie this into something. So you're saying Roll Tide, Alabama. Nick Saban. Is that the guy? Nick Saban.
He retired.
Okay.
Because of this.
Oh, really?
By the way, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. But just in my head, Saban is still there, and there's a football player, and they're using his name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you. I'm with you.
They're selling jerseys. Part of that's just having them part of the program. People coming in to watch this kid.
Right.
Or play at a high level, and so.
Okay.
Now they've made a rule to where these kids can get paid to play. And so which I'm not saying I disagree with. I think, these universities make a lot of money on these kids, and I think they should be able to get some of that revenue.
Right.
But what we've seen is just an absurd level of money that they're getting. And so,
oh, dude. Great.
To bring it a little more local, BYU, right?
Okay.
Where, Dave, miss you, buddy.
Miss you, Dave.
Dave's daughter's playing soccer at BYU.
Right.
The number one basketball player in the country just committed to BYU for boys basketball.
Okay.
His NIL contract was $7 million, and and that's just from the NIL program. I think he's getting other endorsements, things like that. But And
$7
to kind
million?
of tell you why I think this might be an issue for the college sports program is because these kids are coming in. Oftentimes they are a one and done, so they'll play 1 year of college sports for basketball at least, and then go to the pros. Which that's kind of given for some of the top kids. But there's this LSU football star. I can't remember his name, but he got paid an absurd amount of money last year.
Quarterback?
Yeah, he was a quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence.
No.
Oh, man.
Dude,
that's the only one I had.
Dude.
He played against us in our high school. Played against
Oh, really?
him. Bro,
he went to Clemson, bro.
He did?
Yeah, he went to Clemson.
Bro, dude, I don't even know.
He did not go to
bro,
LSU.
let me just quick story. That guy,
Yeah.
we played against him in football. Bro,
yeah.
that was a slaughter. I remember I was in the student section. I was in the student section with my friends, bro. He just real quick. He was the quarterback. He was running like to the right. He was running in the right direction.
Yeah.
It very quickly just looks and does a throw to the left, across his body. Across the field to a dime.
Yeah.
And I remember we just looked at each other and were like, this is not going to be.
There's levels to this stuff.
This is not the same.
Yeah.
We're not operating in the same field right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying these people can make $7 million.
And that was the
and
number
you're
one
like, what? College? You're 20, 21?
Yeah, 19, 19.
Bro.
A lot of kids reclassify to go early. And so why I brought the LSU quarterback was because they just paid him this absurd amount of money, right, to come play here for a year.
Right.
And now he's transferring. He's in the transfer portal. And so I don't disagree that they shouldn't get paid. But I think you should put contracts in place. Like, hey, if you can commit to a 2-year contract or 3 or 4 years, whatever you want to have, and then you have to serve out that contract.
Wait a minute, bro. They're going to give you $7 million, and they don't even get to keep you for that long. You can leave.
That LSU quarterback's transferring, and so he got paid all this money, did all these things. He didn't even fulfill a lot of the things, and he left. And so
hold on.
And I don't know if the LSU quarterback was getting $7 million. I don't know what his contract.
Right. Of course. Okay.
But that's kind of the premise behind it. So.
Still.
Yeah. So.
Now,
I think it's a good thing. They just gotta have some more parameters. Oops.
What?
They gotta have some more parameters and just like rules in place with it because it's turning into a pro league, and so I'm not saying they get just as much eyeballs as a lot of these the pro leagues, and so I think they just gotta have some rules in place.
I mean, bro, what do you expect a 19-year-old to do?
Yeah.
If I'm 19 and you say I'm going to give you $1 million to play, hey, bro, I'll play for a year.
Right.
But if somebody else is offering me 1.1 now, hey, bro, I'm going over there.
That's how the game works. That's how the transfer portal's so big.
And so I can't really blame the player, especially if you're not smart enough to put a contract in.
Not at all, dude.
Right? I mean, like NFL, NBA, they all have contracts, right?
Right. Yeah, I think.
Bro, you're not gonna do it to college.
We're gonna start seeing some of that, I bet, just because of the level of just dollars being spent is so.
I mean, bro, that's crazy.
Yeah. How was it? Trevor Lawrence's senior year when he played against you guys?
What is? I would think it would have to have been his senior year.
Okay.
Because my older brother played football, and I don't think my older brother was on the field at the time.
Okay.
So I think it must have been.
So is that probably the biggest athlete you've seen play, or at like kind of against? You know, you weren't playing, but like you saw him in person play.
Oh, that's a great question.
At your same age.
Yes, I'm trying to think of like you said. I'm thinking of size now.
Yeah.
Definitely like credibility without a doubt. He's the one that like went the furthest.
Okay.
But yeah, I think size. I mean, he's pretty tall too, but like I don't remember any like
bigger guys,
big dudes. You know.
Gotcha. When I was playing.
Plus, I played soccer, bro.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no one knows any like famous soccer players.
Well, dude. I mean, let's take it easy. Well, bro. Yeah, in the States, I agree with you. Not in the States. And
But when I was playing AAU, I played against the Ball brothers. You know them, like
LaMelo,
Lonzo, and LiAngelo.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of it was my junior summer. We were playing AAU basketball.
How good,
dude. I mean, so when it was my junior summer, right? And so I'm the same age as Lonzo, which is the oldest one.
Okay.
But the younger brothers played up.
Okay.
LiAngelo, the middle one, he was just a year younger, so he was like kind of comparable. But then there's LaMelo, which is actually the best one in the NBA right now.
Okay.
Out of those three, I know there's only two in the league, but he was like, I think he was like a 7th or 8th grader, and so he was tiny, and so he wasn't anything like it was like.
It was easier to play.
I mean, and the way they played was just like run and gun, shoot threes, no defense, like they're just out running, and so.
Right.
We actually held our own for most of the game. We ended up losing, but. Yeah, when I said there's levels of this stuff, seeing Lonzo play, like he was when I was our age, he was committed to UCLA at the time. It was literally like 2 weeks before they kind of like blew up and got famous on social media, and so I was like, dude, we just played against those guys, and like it didn't seem anything like crazy. But yeah, I mean, some of the plays they had and just some of the stuff they could do. I mean,
Bro.
obviously we were playing at a high level too, but there's levels to it for sure.
Bro.
So
That's a great point. Okay, I'll tell you my favorite soccer. I think I already told you my favorite soccer story.
yeah. Let me hear it again.
My favorite soccer story is we're playing against this team, dude.
Yeah.
And oh man, I can't even. Let's just say it like this. I was the last line of defense before you got to the goalie. Okay? I was the guy like that. That was it.
Yeah.
I had 3 other defenders that played in front of me. I was the one guy. If they got trapped, they would give me the ball and I'd get it out or I'd pass it and stuff like that. I was the last guy.
Yeah.
I'm watching the other team. They're coming down with the ball, bro.
Okay.
They get past our forwards and our strikers. They get past the midfielders.
Yeah.
Defense is going at them. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to, okay, all right. Hey, my time to shine, baby. This is it, baby. This is it. This is what I prepared for. This is my time.
This is what you trained for.
This is what I trained for, baby. They break through the defense. It's 2 guys. I go up to the first guy who's got the ball. He's not even looking at me. I'm pretty sure he was talking to somebody in the stands. He was just, what are these guys even trying to do? You know what I'm saying? He was giving the attitude of, who do they think they're playing right now? And he could have been juggling 3 tennis balls with his hands. You know what I'm saying? Like he was just he's doing his own thing. And I go up and I'm like, I'm about to get this ball. Bro, he kicks it with like the side of his foot. Just an easy kick. It curves around me and immediately goes right to the other player. And within 1 touch score.
It was like that.
And I just realized, man, there's levels to this, dude.
Yeah.
Why did we got mercy ruled that game? That means they scored 10 goals within the first half.
You gotta keep it competitive, still, dude.
Bro. You don't think we're trying? You must, dude.
It's like that Will Ferrell movie, Kicking and Screaming. Just
Bro.
Give it to the Italians.
dude. The bus ride back from that game.
Yeah.
Dead silence.
I bet.
Bro, there's.
Well, at least you guys care, and you're upset you lost.
Yeah, that was a really tough game. That was a really bad.
Dang.
Moving on to my favorite topics. Okay. Let's kind of just go.
I want to brief this.
Okay.
This is typically our so in our Vodyssey office we eat lunch together every day. It's kind of build morale and hanging out. So
yeah,
this is probably 95% of our lunch conversations.
Right.
Is this topic right here.
Well,
so
I
just
just
wanted to say that.
I love this topic of conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah.
I think we should either go with the aliens or the moon landing. I think flat Earth is going to be way too much for right now.
Well, the moon landing, I'll keep it quick.
Fake.
Oh. 100% fake.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay,
yeah, so I mean, do you want to get into the details of why it's fake?
Nah, we both agree it's fake. All right, so let's talk about aliens.
All right.
What are your thoughts on them? What do you think about them? Do you think, let's start out with this. I'm sorry. Are they here? Have they been here? And what do they look like?
Well, my top 5, I'd say, probably my top 10 is old Independence Day with the man himself, Will Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think something like that very similar has happened in our past.
Oh, really?
No, I'm just kidding. That hasn't happened. But
okay.
I do think.
Okay.
I do believe in aliens.
Uh-huh.
I think there's something out there.
Mm-hmm.
Are they here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
In a certain capacity, I think there might have been some findings or something going on. Aliens is more like kind of yours. Mine's more like kind of.
What are you
like real life? Like
tell me yours. What are yours?
Well, like the moon landings being big, obviously.
Right.
Like the pyramids, how they get here.
Well, you built the pyramids.
9/11, like stuff like that.
All right, dude, I can answer.
Aliens is a little more your space. So you tell me what you think about aliens.
9/11 definitely inside job. Okay. Pyramids, we definitely built them.
Who's like people?
The
humans?
people,
okay.
Humans and giants built them.
Okay,
the Nephilim built them.
I was on the giants. Like I think giants built
them. And then I think aliens. Here's the deal, bro. My views of the aliens have changed over the years. Okay. I used to think that there were these little green big-headed creatures that came from outer space, from planets light years away.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I was watching Tucker Carlson on the JRE, Joe Rogan, and he brought up something I never even thought of. He thinks they're spiritual beings. And I'm like, I've never thought of them that way.
Well, how did he differ between a spirit and an alien? What was like?
Well, his whole thing was that the government will tell you that they are advanced technologies, that we have aircrafts that are not from Earth, that they're
I think we do too.
That they're advanced, all these things. But he's like, they never tie in this spiritual aspect to them. But yet we've seen them throughout all of history and all of time. They've always been here.
Yeah.
So the idea that they all of a sudden just started coming whenever the atom bomb was dropped and they're going to try and save us is not a true thing. They've always been here.
I guess my thought with that would just be like, okay, that's a spirit, which I believe in spirits.
Right.
Versus like when I think of aliens, I'm on the same wavelength you are of like outer space.
That's what I think too, because just like the alien spaceship and stuff.
Yeah.
But here's another thing. I think what a lot of like UFO sightings, UAP sightings and stuff is that aliens, this is what I think. Alien spaceships have crashed, right?
Okay.
We maybe have recovered.
Like Independence Day.
We have recovered some bodies, something. And I don't know what's happened to them.
Area
51, deep in the tunnels, something like that.
I showed up for that, like when we were going to storm Area 51. I was there.
No, you didn't.
No, I wasn't.
Bro, did you?
I thought about it. No.
I thought about it too, but I was like, I don't know.
I don't want to die. So,
what
do you think about the aircraft or like the spacecraft?
I think they're ours. I think they're ours.
It was on PBD podcast. Stephen Greer, I think.
Yeah. Glasses, older guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's talking about this like underwater
ship
that we have that can just move like
that's crazy
fast, and like we have like
that's crazy, bro.
Like we have no idea the actual capacity of like the tools that we have in our belt.
Yeah.
So
I think 100% they've crashed. We've over time learned how to back engineer them. We now know how to either build them or operate the ones that have been here.
Yeah.
And then now, like anything in human history, it's just evolving hard, fast.
I feel there's a lot of like topics inside of that topic, like zero energy or like what's that term? Like where you
what?
I'm trying to think
like bend space and time.
No,
zero gravity.
Not zero gravity, but like zero emission, like energy, like
like
and with like water and like things how you can like kind of more like physics stuff. There was another podcast. I know I listen to PBD all the time, but he's an actor and he was on PBD podcast. And he has a ton of patents.
Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that interview was really interesting.
Bro.
Like some of the things he could do.
Bro.
And he basically one of his premises was like 1 times 1 or 1 times 0 does not equal 0. 1 times 0 equals something else. And like so. Not to dive into,
He believes in frequencies, though. That's another thing. I actually really, it's something that I've really been noticing a lot. Maybe it's just a lot of my Instagram Reels feed, you know?
Yeah.
But everything has been about frequencies and hertz recently. And I think that's something that Terrence Howard was really getting into, wasn't he?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I can't talk into detail, but like, that's all of his premise of his research. And he has patents out there. And so, yeah, a lot of fun.
I mean, that's pretty cool, though.
A lot of fun conspiracy theories that we could dive into. So
I love them, dude. Send in your favorite conspiracies. But we've done 32 minutes, bro. We got to cut it.
All right, man.
Send in your favorite conspiracy theories to support@vodyssey.com. We'll talk about them maybe.
Yeah. Next week, hopefully, Sean's back. He's here a little bit better than me on the mic. So,
dude, amazing job.
Well,
we killed
Jake,
it.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely.
I want to leave you with one thing. You go build that life.
No.
Do one thing today to build that life.
Pick that one thing you can do today.
You go pick that one thing today to build that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Cheers, brother.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodyssey.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.